Trump says Britain easier to deal with than EU. The latest on President Donald Trump's visit with British Prime Minister Theresa May, all times local. 1:40 p.m. President Donald Trump says his experience as a businessman dealing with Europe was very, very tough, and a very bad experience, while dealing with Britain was far smoother. He says that's why he thinks Britain's exit from the European Union will be a fantastic thing for the United Kingdom. Trump says he expects to get along well with May because they both enjoy being around other people. He quipped, "I'm not as brash as you might think." May says they share a political approach of putting the interests of ordinary people right up their center stage. _____. 1:30 p.m. British Prime Minister Theresa May is taking a tougher stance on sanctions on Russia than is President Donald Trump. Trump was asked at a joint news conference after his White House meeting with May how close the U.S. is to lifting sanctions on Russia over its incursion into Ukraine. Trump says it is very early to be talking about that. He says the U.S. looks to have a great relationship with all countries, including Russia. May says Britain wants to see sanctions remain until a 2015 ceasefire agreement for Ukraine is fully implemented. _____. 1:30 p.m. President Donald Trump says he had a friendly call with the Mexican president. At a news conference with British Prime Minister Theresa May, Trump confirmed he had an hour-long call with President Enrique Peña Nieto. The call came a day after the Mexican leader canceled a visit to Washington after Trump moved forward on building a border wall. Trump reiterated his stance that the US-Mexico border is porous and drugs are making their way into the U.S. He also vowed to renegotiate American trade deals with Mexico. _____. 1:20 p.m. British Prime Minister Theresa May says President Donald Trump has reaffirmed both countries' unshakable commitment to the NATO military alliance. Trump had rattled European allies by suggesting NATO is obsolete and that the United States might not come to the aid of countries that don't meet targets for their own defense spending. May's comments after their meeting Friday are meant to put that concern to rest. She says the two also agreed it is important for member countries to invest properly to face our shared challenges together. May also says she extended an invitation to visit England on behalf of the Queen and that Trump has accepted. _____. 1:20 p.m. President Donald Trump is pledging support for what he calls a most special relationship between the U.S. and Britain. Trump says in a joint press conference with British Prime Minister Theresa May it is an honor to have her at the White House as his first official visit from a foreign leader. He says, "The special relationship between our two countries has been one of the great forces in history for justice and peace." He says the U.S. respects the sovereignty of the British people and their right of self-determination and says both counties understand that governments must be responsive to everyday working people. _____. 12:30 p.m. President Donald Trump is showing off a bust of Winston Churchill that decorates the Oval Office as he hosts British Prime Minister Theresa May. Trump says it's a great honor to have the bust back in the Oval Office. President Barack Obama was criticized for removing the bust of the beloved British Prime Minister. May is the first foreign leader to visit since Trump took office last week. May says it's an honor to be at the White House. The two are expected to hold a joint news conference and lunch later Friday. ______. 12:01 p.m. British Prime Minister Theresa May has arrived at the White House to meet with President Donald Trump. The president is hosting May Friday in the Oval Office. She's the first foreign leader to visit since Trump took the oath of office last week. The White House said late Thursday that May and Trump would hold talks, followed by a news conference and a working lunch. ____. 10:11 a.m. British Prime Minister Theresa May has laid a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns at Arlington National Cemetery. The ceremony comes in advance of her meeting with President Donald Trump. Dressed in black and flanked by a military honor guard, May walked along the broad avenue leading to the white marble tomb, accompanied by Major General Bradley Becker, the U.S. military commander for Washington. She laid a wreath of red poppies, then paused silently while a military bugler played taps. May wiped away sniffles as she walked up the stairs to the cemetery's neoclassical museum. In a speech Thursday in Philadelphia, May signaled she would be more reluctant than some of her predecessors to commit to foreign military engagements like the Iraq War. ____. 3:37 a.m. President Donald Trump is set to meet his first world leader since taking office. British Prime Minister Theresa May, a friendly ally who hopes to nudge the populist president toward the political mainstream. The visit Friday comes a day after Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto called off his own trip to Washington, planned for next week, amid wrangling over who will pay for Trump's planned wall along the U.S. Mexico border. Trump's spokesman said the president would seek a 20% tax on Mexican imports to pay for the barrier, then later clarified that such a tax would be a possible approach. May's meeting with the president in the Oval Office is being hailed by the British government as a sign that the transatlantic special relationship is valued by the new administration.